So we're a week into the Switch 2 and I have some thoughts as a Steam Deck user and as a handheld gamer at heart these days, and mostly positives, but of course there's a few negatives to go along with that, so let's get into it, shall we? Overall, I think the Switch 2 is a positive system. It pushes forward the Nintendo platform as a whole, giving us games at 60 FPS and at higher resolutions. While those two things aren't the most important, gameplay is king. I think these are a really solid foundation for the Switch 2. So for the next 7 years, we're going to get some pretty great first-party Nintendo titles, and I think third parties are going to surprise us with what they can push on the system. Something like Cyberpunk seems to be doing pretty well on the Switch 2. Of course, that has its own problems, and I haven't played it, so I don't want to get too knees deep in that. But I've been playing a ton of Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Kart World, and what's really throwing me for a loop here is Pokémon Violet. I've put over 25 hours into it since the Switch 2 came out. It has really taken my imagination, and I am loving every minute of this game. Something I hadn't even bothered to consider picking up on the Switch 1, but with the Switch 2 upgrade, it really did ignite my excitement to play that game. And so the Switch 2 is doing what it wanted me to do, which is play Nintendo games and buy them. So it's working a treat. And we'll start off with hardware and how I feel about the device in hand and its build quality and all that. You've probably seen a few of these videos already, so feel free to skip this. In general, I like the size of the Switch 2. It is smaller than the Steam Deck, which is good, but also bad. So for me, my biggest issue, actually, this is a con for me, is the Joy-Cons. While they're bigger and better, in handheld mode, the fact that there's no grip is really bad for my ergonomics. My hands just get so sore trying to hold the device, and my pinkies always end up underneath to support it, and so I get very sore fingers. That's one thing I don't do with the Steam Deck, is because of those back grips, it just makes the device much more comfortable, while Nintendo is going for a much more sleek system, which I appreciate. It also does detract for me personally in handheld mode, so I am looking at going and getting some Joy-Con grips that I can attach, so it bulks out those Joy-Cons on the back a wee bit, and but still allows me to put it in the dock, as I have been using my Switch 2 in the dock a lot more than I was expecting. Where the Steam Deck I normally just keep in handheld mode 99% of the time, the Switch 2 I do want to dock, simply because, moving on to another piece of hardware that surprised me how great it is the Pro Controller. I think this is one of the best controllers I've ever had. Battery life is probably one of the greatest aspects of it, along with these analog sticks. They are so well made. You've probably seen some videos online of people breaking down the Pro Controller and how they've got gates inside of those analog sticks to stop them from grinding on the outside plastic, and it gives them such a smooth, soft feeling. It's going to be hard for me to go back to anything else. While I love the DualSense on the PS5, I do think Nintendo's onto a winner here with their Pro Controller, even with their little GR and GL buttons added on. You can do so much with those, especially with something like Zelda, where I use them to quickly access my jump and run, or I've sometimes tried them as my weapons, and like to quickly go into my weapon wheel and change weapons. They're so easy to readjust. So only positive things about that Pro Controller. Battery life is great on it. The one downside people seem to be putting forward is that it is a digital triggers, not analog. So for racing games, it may not be the best, but for me personally, the gyro for a Zelda is working a charm, and all positive about the Pro Controller. So one negative about the Joy-Cons, one positive about the Pro Controller. I need a way to play the Switch 2 in handheld while using that Pro Controller, because it is by far becoming one of my most favorite controllers. The dock build, the quality of the Switch 2 dock I'm not 100% on. I dislike how they have a plate on the back for you to cover your cables after you've plugged them in. I think it just feels cheap and a little bit naff. I wish they had done something a little bit different. Again, you don't really see it, so it doesn't really matter, but it's just a personal thing. I feel like that back plate to hide the cabling is just a little bit rubbish, and honestly. So, and the screen, like I say, I play on Switch OLED, I play on my Steam Deck OLED a lot, right? And changing over to Switch 2 LCD honestly hasn't hurt my gaming experience at all. If you're not comparing apples to apples at the exact same time, it's really hard to notice that difference personally for me. And so I don't really have a problem with it. And then when I'm docking onto my LCD TV, again, I haven't got an OLED there, but I'm loving it either way. So your mileage will vary with the LCD and the OLED stuff. Personally, it doesn't bother me. So moving on to games. So the least I've played is, funnily enough, Tears of the Kingdom, where I've put in probably about 5 hours into a new save. I have played over 25 hours of Tears of the Kingdom on a previous save, but had to start fresh. I will come back to Tears for sure, but Pokemon Violet is what I want to finish first. And like I say, I put 25 hours into that. And all three, Mario Kart, Pokemon, and Zelda, all 60 FPS, and it just feels so good. I've been noticing a lot with the Steam Deck, a lot of games now are 30 FPS or slightly under, or you're struggling to even get to that 40. So it's been nice to come to the Switch 2 where games are just running natively at 60 FPS off the bat, and I had been missing that a wee bit. So it's been quite nice to go back to that 60 FPS line. And while it's not the be all end all, gameplay is king, it is really nice to have that there. But it really does give some of these older titles from Switch 1 on Switch 2 a really big facelift. And Violet being a big perpetrator for me, I stayed well clear of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet at launch when there was so many problems with it and how poorly it ran on the Switch 1. I didn't even bother buying it. But as soon as I had heard that they were updating it for Switch 2, I went out and got me a dual pack of Violet and Scarlet, one for me and one for my partner, and she's been playing Scarlet on my OLED Switch, and I've been playing Violet on the Switch 2, and we're having a great time. I haven't told her that there's that massive difference, but she seems to be having fun on Scarlet anyway. So yeah, Violet has been so much fun, those great load times, and the 60 FPS, while it's a turn-based game, it is nice to look at. And as you can see behind me, Mario Kart just flies along at 60 FPS and is a lot of fun. Personally, I've been doing some of the courses, like the Mario Kart, what are they called, like the tours, but generally my favorite game mode is the knockout tour on multiplayer online. 24 players just duking it out for first place over the course of multiple stretches. It's like the first gate to 20 or 18, and then 16, and then 10, and then 8. I really find that quite compelling to play. And then usually you're unlocking another kart or another racer at the end of that. So yeah, Mario Kart Knockout Tour is by far the best mode in that game. And while I'm being pretty positive about Mario Kart World, I never played Mario Kart 8, so I don't have that comparison. But what I will say is the open world stuff definitely doesn't interest me as much as I was hoping it would. I end up just using the menus and doing Knockout Tour or the cups. I've gone into the open world to do some of the side mission stuff, like the little pop-up missions. But I wish they had committed to that open world just a wee bit more by driving to events in the open world. Sort of like Crash Team Racing back on the PS1, if you remember that, had an open world zone where you drove around to access your cups and missions. If they had done that for Mario World, I reckon that would have elevated the game's open world to being the most important part. Where here it is currently a side thing, which is odd because even on the main menu, it's not an option. You push like plus on the menu on the remote on the controller to go to open world, which I found very odd that it's not actually like a major like slap across like multiplayer, single player, or online. There's no open world slap there. So very surprising to me that that's not a thing. But either way, Mario Kart World will continue to get updates, I'm assuming, for the next 7 years. And by the time we get to the Switch 3, there's going to be that game is going to have a lot of content in it. So I don't, no regrets, put it that way, no regrets in buying Mario Kart World. I'm having great fun, but Pokemon has definitely stolen the limelight for me, and I'm going to crack through that and then move on to finally, committing and finishing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, because that game definitely looks and plays so much better on the Switch 2. So my overall impressions of the Switch 2 is it's going to be a great machine going forward, and it's only going to get better, like fine wine. Nintendo with updates, first party titles, third party titles even. There's just going to be a lot coming to the device over the next few years, and it will make its money back no time. As we're looking forward, we've got the Xbox handheld. We've got the Legion Levino Go 2 or whatever it's called, and then we've also got, surely on the horizon, a Switch Steam Deck 2. In handheld terms, I think Switch is definitely the way to go for most people, because these handheld PCs are just always going to be that slightly more complicated. The new Xbox handheld may change that, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how that develops and comes out later this year, and I've got my eye keenly on that device, along with the Switch or 2 versus that. It's going to be a much more powerful machine, but that eye-watering cost of the black version of the Xbox handheld, I just feel like it's going to be far too high for most people, where the Switch 2 is just a much easier jump-in point, and you get first-party Nintendo games there. So overall, really happy with the Switch 2. It is a high price to play games, but in terms of other systems, I think it's doing a lot for what you're paying for, and it's only going to get better as time goes on. Maybe this is something you get in a year's time when there's a lot more content available, but as of right now, I've got an entire back catalogue of Switch 1 games to play, so I'm more than happy with this. So anyway, thanks guys for listening to my babbling, and I'll see you in the next one.